go.
That is so quick. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Johnny McElhearn. This is In the Metal, and we are tonight going to have a conversation with a remarkable character in the world of watchmaking. I've been reading up on his background, and I've known him for many, many years. I met him in Salon QP originally, and that's going back to about 2012 or 2014, maybe earlier. And to have followed his career since then, it's been such a journey. It's been remarkable. I'm also joined, as ever, by my loyal companion, co-host in Brooklyn, in New York City, Jayesh. Welcome. How are you, my friend?
Hello. Looking forward to this episode. I'm so, I've heard so much about this guest of ours, Sébastien, and so much of these things, what he's done with movements and now with his brand. I'm so excited.
Excellent. Yeah. And do you know what? I know how quickly these episodes go by. And so instead of faffing about and chewing the fat, so to speak, let's get straight into it. And so our guest this week is really, he'll have to describe himself. He's Dr. Sébastien Chaulmontet. And we'd like to say hello and welcome to you, Sébastien.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. So, Sébastien, I've been trying to describe and explain who you are, what you are, but you're like a chameleon. You've had so many different aspects to your career. I did a little social media thing earlier and described you started out, you qualified as a barrister, I believe.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I worked actually as a lawyer for many years, and I did a PhD as well. And at some point, I decided to do what I was really interested in.
Yeah.
But I was quite interested in law as well, because otherwise I think you don't do a PhD. But it was watches, and I have always been very interested in mechanics, and so I patented quite some ideas for movements, and it's how I kind of naturally joined Joux-Perret as a head of development, movement creation, which is a bit a weird change from going from barrister or a lawyer to being a head of. So the people who saw me arriving was a bit surprised because I was quite young, and I started immediately by being their boss. So it was a bit of a weird situation. But this is almost 20 years ago now, so it doesn't make me any younger. And so I stayed quite long at Joux-Perret. I stayed 10 years.
Wow.
In the meantime, we bought Arnold and Son. We also acquired Angelus.
Yes.
So we were a pure movement manufacturer, but as the business was changing, we felt the need to have brands for our own, to also have some work to do on our own brands. So we started with Arnold and Son, and we developed like 22 movements in 5 years.
Oh wow!
So we really pushed the brand, and they're still today using most of these movements. And then we had the chance to buy Angelus, which was like a quite personal project, because I have been an Angelus collector for many years.
Yes.
And it's also actually how we managed to buy the brand. It was offered to me personally. I got a phone call and I thought someone tried to sell me a watch. And actually the guy said, no, it's not the watch, it's the brand itself. So unfortunately, I didn't have the money to buy it all by myself. So I bought it. I was a shareholder as well. So I bought a part of it.
Yes.
And so we relaunched it with the help of Joux-Perret, and the entire thing got sold eventually to Citizen Group,
yes.
which massively changed the way we operated at the time. And it made it a bit less fun for me.
Yeah.
So at some point I left, and I joined the Sellita group, where I've been like for 9 years now, and I'm heading movement development, and we have different brands of movement brands. We don't do watches.
Yes.
And on the side, I do my little Albishorn brand.
Albishorn brand.
Well, listen, the whole thing, when you look at it, lawyer and being interested in watches and movements, and then going into something which you actually wanted to do and joining Joux-Perret. I mean, it's all about development for yourself, the career going towards where you want it to go. And now being in Sellita is already a big deal, because Sellita is the one which is actually doing a lot of work with so many independents and so many brands, after the situation with ETA, I suppose, when they stopped. I think they had a hold on giving moments to other brands, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. Yeah. There was a long legal fight, and
Yes.
where actually Swatch Group decided to starve the industry, basically, and it was a long process. And Sellita, it took it quite some years to take over this entire market somehow. So from a company with 100 people 20 years ago, we are over 1,000 today.
Oh, wow.
So we have a second brand called Manufacture EMT, where we do specific tailor-made manufacture movements for big brands, because as you can imagine, from the circle, people don't want many brands don't want to have standard movements anymore. So we develop more and more specific, exclusive movements. As many brands realize that being a manufacturer is a job by itself, and selling watches is a different story.
Yeah.
So basically, the circle ends up by people buying Sellita, then doing themselves, realizing that it's not that easy, and coming back, but we do specific stuff for them.
Oh, that is amazing.
And it's why my job now looks more like what I did at La Joux. Then when I started 9 years ago at Sellita, where we had maybe 6 or 5 calibers, and nowadays, I mean, I have here this is just one of the movements we are selling from Sellita, right? The catalog. So it's getting so it's quite interesting, and I've always been fascinated to be a supplier in the sense of developing for many brands.
Yes.
It was also something very interesting at Joux-Perret, as we were working for like Panerai, Hublot, even Jacques Hédro at the time, which was a Swatch Group brand. Wow. So it was always interesting to be able to dive into the DNA, the story, and especially as we were doing quite high-end movement specific tourbillons for Hermes, for Vuitton. So it was very interesting, actually, also working for competitors and always trying to design something specific to any brand. And as I love history of watchmaking, to be able to work for all these big and crazy brands, crazy in the sense of interesting brands with stories to tell, it's very interesting, especially when you're on the movement side.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely
that's my
correct. Because without that, you don't go anywhere. I mean, you can have the best design, but how are you going to manage the design without having the right moment? Things which sort of, it's very logical to go through the same, situation where you are then there to organize it for them, specifically.
Yeah. So the industry obviously changed a lot over the years, in the sense that all these big brands have become more or less manufacturers and don't rely anymore on movement suppliers. It's also the reason why La Joux-Perret changed so much the business model, because La Joux-Perret nowadays is a quite different and smaller company than it used to be when I was working there. Because we were really focusing on high-end, complicated movement. We had no three hands, so to speak, or like we made the simplest thing we were doing were rattrapante or foudroyante, right? So, and then we were going up market. And nowadays, it has become like a subsidiary of Citizen. So basically, it does industrial stuff, which is good, which is probably the way to go. But the industry has really been tough for movement suppliers, I would say. When I started in the industry,
I have surplus to requirements here. I'm not spying, but there's before we moved away from your early days, there was a few pieces because I went up to the Atelier's site and was reading a little bit about your bio and a couple of your favorite creations from back in those days, and we got a little glimpse of it there. But one, and this is the time pyramid from Arnold and Son, and this is the piece that you were exhibiting in London in Salon QP whenever I first met you. And the fact that I remembered you so well and so vividly is because this piece was mind-blowing to me. And absolutely. And they are, I was looking today, essentially the exact same fundamentals. Your movement is still being used in the time pyramid today. And it struck me today, Sébastien, when we were going through this, to have come from the background and the academic career that you had, which took you through law school and to your degree and to your PhD, to branch off and go in such a diverse direction, and not only just to manufacture or design and develop movements, but to actually be a game changer. These were astonishing.
Yeah, because when you look at this one, I think it's a good example of something I would say a classical engineer would never do. First, let's come back to the story of this movement. I mean, I was always fascinated by the British skeleton clocks, which were basically pyramidal, and I bought one in London. And they're quite spectacular. Even in the museum here in Le Locle, Château des Monts, they have quite an exhibition. They have just been robbed 2 weeks ago, but they used to have quite a lot of these in the basement. I think it's exactly the one who got robbed, so I have to check.
Oh,
but
no.
they are very, very, if you want, elegant, structurally interesting movements. And at the time, we were also working a lot on Focorum, on the bridges. And of course, I would not do a bridge for Arnold and Son. And I love these clocks. And I said, yeah, that's some kind of a magic. And if you want, it's somehow the opposite of a Corum Golden Bridge. When I say the opposite is we did everything to show the gears. So we have not one string hiding everything. Like we really we did bridges that you can see the gears interacting, connecting. You know, like Michelangelo, Sixtine Chapel.
Fantastic.
Then I wanted also, because people always had a bit of questions about how do double barrel functions. So this one is in series, so meaning one feeds the other. And we had a bit of emptiness when I designed the movement. I was not very happy, not enough going on somehow. And I thought it'd be cool to have 2 power reserves, because people, when they don't have the watch, they think, why do you have a 2 power reserve to display the same thing? And actually it doesn't. It really shows how one barrel goes down and at that point get fed by the other one.
Yeah,
and that's quite an interplay, which is very nice to look at. And it gives you a technical understanding, a bit like this old Jaguar, where you could put gas on both sides. You had 2 tanks and you had to fill both and so on. And what is very nice about this one, it only works when you have barrels which are connected in series. It's really one feeding, so to speak, the other one. So one's go down and then you see the other one feeding it, and you have one power reserve without you doing anything going up again. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's really one. And then when you see the bridge, how they are meant to connect is really to, I would say, show as many gear connections. So we try to interrupt the bridge design. It's why you have the sharp and triangular shapes, because you can see the gears meshing into each other. So that's how the idea came to fruition. And of course, it's quite far-fetched for the Arnold and Son history somehow, because he didn't do skeleton clocks.
Yes.
But it's still part of the British heritage, and especially the clock heritage. And so it's how it came to be. But when you look at it, technically speaking, it's very architectural, but it's very easy to design.
All right.
Well, it was. I remember it stood out in my mind from the first.
It doesn't look easy, but it looks amazing. I mean, it's like you're looking at so many different things at the same time, and you're like, "Wow, how does that fit?"
Yeah, because the idea was to put different layers. It's why the second is very low. It runs underneath. I mean, we integrated the second, so to speak, into the movement, and then we have a layer on top. And so that's also because the movement is very thin. But nonetheless, you have the second display, which is way lower, which allows you to have the sapphire dial over it. And then we have our minute, and on top we use the top glass for the indication of the power reserve. So the dots you see, they are printed in the glass.
Yes.
And that 15 years ago was quite unique. No, Ming used this technique of printing his glasses a lot.
Yes.
But when you think of it, at the time, no other manufacturer were using the top glass to print something underneath for a display. So the dots you see are really onto the top crystal.
Yes. Wow.
Listen, we need to move on, right? Because
there's
another piece I want to talk about before we get on to Albishorn, and that was a piece you mentioned, Angelus. And that you worked with Angelus, and again another piece that whenever I first saw it, what?
Yeah, exactly. What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah, this one, yeah, this one is a long story. Just on the side note, I told my girlfriend at the time that once I did that, I was ready to be fired because I always wanted to do that, and I knew it wouldn't be the biggest commercial success, but I was happy I could do it nonetheless. So this one was not understood at all, and I can understand why. Just a bit to the background. I have been collecting historical Angelus for many years. I have quite a large collection, I would say. I wrote the history of Angelus for the brand, so I'm well acquainted with what Angelus standard for, and I didn't feel like doing any kind of reeditions. The reason why I loved Angelus in the first place was they always did word first. The first serial produced chronograph with calendar, the first big date, the first alarm wristwatch with a date. Seems simple and stupid nowadays, but at the time it was that alarm. The first time, it's why they could protect the name.
Wow.
They also had the datograph because they did the datograph name used later on by Langer because they did the first a certain type of watch with a date. So if you go through the history of, and then they did the Tinkler, which Angelus just re-edited,
Yes.
which was the first automatic and in addition waterproof repeater, and everybody would think that's a Patek product to do that, but they did it. It almost bankrupted the guys, but they still tried to do it. So my point was not to reproduce the past and to try to go back in the 70s, something what I do with Albishorn, imaginary vintage, and say, okay, they were killed basically by a quartz technology. So let's do like a crazy mechanical watch, which they could have done in the 70s, even if it's impossible because there were no market. I mean, there were no market when we launched it either, but in the 70s, even less. So we took all the clues of the electronic from that time, the Dita Rams and the Brian Vega television and everything design I love and stuff I own. Then we did a deadbeat second. Again, a deadbeat second 14 years ago was not that common, and it became later on. So if you look on the one side, you have something which looks like an electronic clock with a jumping second. And on the opposite side, on the right-hand side, you have the most traditional tourbillon you can think of with a Breguet hairspring, 18,000 beat. So I did like you want like a pocket watch tourbillon, not a high beat, not a modern one, a one with screws, I mean, it's the only tourbillon we ever made at La Joux-Perret with Breguet hairspring. Wow. So we wanted to have this contrasting of not just a tourbillon, because we did a lot of tourbillons, especially high beat, simple ones, for Angelus. But when you look at that tourbillon, this thing is huge. This thing is fucking crazy big, and it's really built. So I wanted to have this contrast between something looking like an electronic Japanese device with German design cues, and this on the opposite in a vitrine, like beating hard. And well, I think I'm the only one. I'm the only one who liked that one.
Wrong.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
I actually own one, and yeah. So, but I understand. I'm still. How can I say? For 20 years, I have been saying that the people would get bored by reeditions, and I'm wrong. Every time they come with a reedition, without any creativity, but just redoing something past, it gives you legitimacy and people love it. And nothing bad about that, but I always felt a bit bad of reproducing something, even if I own the original Arnold Angelus ones, and I love them, I didn't feel like reproducing them. But this one probably was a bit too tough for the market. But from the day one, we had the vision of two lines. One we were calling the urban, and one which we were calling Tradition. But also in the Tradition, we were not planning to make re-editions, but like crazy, impossible Art Deco watches.
Wow.
Curved with curved disc. And we had prototypes and stuff done. It has never been launched. So I know it's over 10 years ago, so I'm allowed to tell it. But so obviously they took a different route once I left. I wouldn't say in retrospect that this watch was very helpful for the relaunch, but I had great fun doing it.
And do you know something? I think possibly like a lot of independent watchmaking back 15 years ago, a lot of things were just a little bit ahead of their time. If that piece was released today, brand new, it would be fully subscribed in hours, regardless of the price.
Yeah. So we struggled selling this thing, and interestingly, it's not that large. It wears very well. I have a 16 centimeter wrist, and it wears perfectly because it's very compact. But again, the shape is difficult, I guess. And yeah, it was meant as a talking piece. Sorry, I'm playing with a prototype of one of my neck watches. And yeah, I still love it, and I still. And the funny thing is, we got so much criticism, and it was coming from the exact same people I knew, basically collectors like myself criticizing what I did, and I probably would have used the same argument if I would have been on the other side. So it was doubly hurtful because I would. I mean, the only thing people cannot claim is that I'm not aware of the history of Angelus. So I did it. I knew it, and I did it, and I really liked the crazy stuff they did. And last but not least, I mean, what also people tend to forget about Angelus, they were producing to 95% travel clocks, and they have the 4 thumb, the 6 thumb, and it's the more windows they have. They did this crazy travel clocks you can open, and you have many little windows. And this one watch as well has this window aspect.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the watch for the first time some years ago, and I was like, oh my god! If I had the funds, I would buy it immediately. I would buy the watch now, because it is such an insane watch. And I saw the same thing with Sébastien, Angelus. You know, they had a sort of some sort of a collaboration, and that was also fantastic. Now, this watch, if it was released today, that would be a hit seller. It would go like this, because I have a friend, his name is Giancarlo Rosselli. He's the chapter head of Atlanta Watch Society, and he has one of them. He's wearing it. He borrowed it from one of the Angelus guys, and he's wearing it right now. And I'm like, please bring it to me. I want to see it.
Yeah. It's a funny, about Sébastien. It's a funny thing because he did it many years after I left, and he was on the podium in Geneva during one of these Geneva Watch Days 2 or 3 years ago, and he was on the podium discussing about that piece, and he said, I had to fix it because I don't know who the idiot is who designed it in the first place, but the tourbillon should not be on the wrist side, but on the opposite, and so he made a cone head watch out of it. And I feel that I took it a bit personal, to be very frank, because first of all, he used my movement, and he turned it all the way around, explaining that it makes no sense having the tourbillon on the side, on the wrist side, and exactly what the concept of the watch was. Basically, you wear it, and if you have a good shirt, you can basically hide the watch and just have like the rest is just the tourbillon. And he explained 15 minutes that the guy who had this idea was plain stupid, and I still have to discuss it with him.
I think you should, man. This is very personal.
Yeah.
But in the man deliberately steers away from it, but some he drives straight.
But I think they sold they probably sold more of his design than of mine, and they simplified the movement. They got rid of the dead beat and of the power reserve to make it cheaper.
Yeah, of course. I mean, in the end, it all goes to what the sales are and what we can make out of it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But this is going to bring us on beautifully to the next chapter, or the chapter that we're here to talk about tonight. It's only taken us 23 minutes to get to this point, but I can see how your creations, it's like a trail of breadcrumbs from where you started out to where we are at the minute with these fantastical, otherworldly creations that were. They're like when we used to see images of concept cars. We still do see images of concept cars, but they never ever get to market. They're always they're muted. Their personality is drained out of them before they get to market, and they're usually very disappointing compared to the original drawings. But I always associate what you've been doing. They're like concepts brought to life, and I love that. So, but the next, where we are now, and the reason that we wanted to talk about it, because we did look at one of your watches last week in the metal, and this was your Albishorn brand. What Albishorn?
So
Albishorn, Albishorn is. I mean, I like to do, like, I think probably people cannot understand that someone designing Arnold and Son and is able to do an Angelus in in a Dieter Rams kind of design kind of stuff. So they can say, how can the same guy design both and be in love with both, because they are so opposite. One is talking from a clock in a red gold case, and the other one is like a squarish kind of weird engine for the wrist. Yeah, Albishorn, first of all, came a bit of a discussion with friends, in a sense of I always try to say that I'm getting tired of all these reeditions, and the friend told me, yeah, but what would you do? And as I say, as a collector, what still moves me to go on watch fair, I'm going this weekend in Germany to the biggest European fair of vintage watches, is hunting the impossible, the watch you don't know of, and which gets harder to find after collecting for 30 years, but the prototypes, all this stuff. And the more you dig into the history of watchmaking, the more you realize that the people before us were as at least as crazy as we are, and you find crazy stuff. So I found like a square chrono from Le Coultre, which was Backwine. I made a wristwatch out of it. So my point is, you have crazy watches around, and when you're collecting, at some point, there's some watches you think they must exist, and they somehow don't. But it's not logical, because they would have fit in the Art Deco period. They would have fit technically, aesthetically. And so I said, instead of, I have no heritage by myself, I said, instead of doing buying a fake old brand or whatsoever, I played the game of my heritage is the entire Swiss industry, watchmaking industry, and I will do the links I would have loved as a collector to find, and I have quite different stuff coming, not only chronographs. So stuff will probably also remind you a bit of the Angelus we just saw. I'm not done with that kind of watches, but the thing is, I had like a lot of watches I thought should have been done, and so I'm not doing them. But they could have somehow existed. So I have different approaches. The Type 10 is quite a logical one. Is the ancestor of the Type 20, and the French army never had an ancestor. So some collectors would correct me and say they had. It was a German army chronograph, but it's always hard to say. But but the French never had the equivalent of the Bundeswehr chronograph. Then we have the Sondergraph, which obviously is like an evolution from the Zerograph from Rolex somehow, because the Zerograph was just a zero reset, not a fully fledged chronograph. Yeah. But it has the idea of the error-proof dial, but I made it my own, because the error-proof dial, called the California dial nowadays, is a patent from Rolex, but uses Roman numerals and Arabic numerals. Yeah. I get rid of the Arabic numerals to just keep the Romans, and it gives a very clear structure to the dial. And it's really following the principle that Rolex patented in the 40s, and so on and so on. Also, regatta chronographs as wristwatch were not existing in the 30s, but they had invented everything: waterproof, anti-magnetic, shock resistant. But there were just no market for regatta chronographs. You had regatta. Yeah, this is the 60s. This is the mix of a skin diver and a regatta, also something which never existed. So I did a skin diver regatta. So every watch is a bit of a story, in the sense of it makes somehow sense in the period. Hopefully it does even full sense, but it's a genre like I never understood. When you had this huge amount of skin diver, when you start collecting skin diver from the 60s, you can buy hundreds from many brands. Yes. You have regatta chronographs, especially from Lemania, a few from Hoya and Aquastar. And often the Aquastar actually or Hoyas are rebranded Aquastars. You don't find the mix of both. And I said, instead of doing a diver or doing classical stuff, why don't mix both and making a water sport chrono? And I had for a long time this obsession of doing a dive chronograph without losing any index, because it's something drives me crazy when you lose all visibility, and so I kind of like the idea that it's somehow a hidden chronograph, but it's a fully functional with a regatta counter and running second by a disc. So yeah, all of that brings to and I have quite some other stuff in the making, a bit in the same vein, and I will not do only chronographs. So the next launch will be 3 hands.
Okay. Well, listen, let's go. Let's take a look at the 3 different strands of Albishorn at the minute, which is earth, water, air. You have we've just looked at the marinograph. We'll talk about that. Where would you like to start? Would you like to start with the the Type 10 or the Thundergraph or the Marinograph?
So the water collection started with the Maxigraph, a watch I designed specifically for Masséna Lab, which was the imaginary regatta which got a huge success, which is sold out now, which had I think a very strong dial, probably one of my favorite dials. The project who means the most to me, because it started with, was the Thundergraph with the blue dial. Because the Thundergraph was the first watch I wanted to design, because I love the old Zerograph from Rolex. I was always missing the fact that it has no counter and it's not a real chrono. It's way too small and way too expensive. And I thought, why Rolex abandoned this kind of cool conical bezel, turning bezel, turning bezel at Rolex. And it's an iconic watch, probably most people don't know of. And I said it would have been great to build on that thing, to make it a real chronograph and an evolution. And I never want to copy anything, but I agree that there might be inspiration, but I deeply hate homage watches. And I also have personally a bit of an issue with re-edition, even if the brands do them, because when you like the old one, you always somehow want the original. So there are some watches which are better today than they used to be. So I have no problem with that. Like, I own quite a few Reverso, and I have vintage ones as well. But I mean, the build quality of modern one is uncomparable. Or you take any Speedmaster. I mean, they are hard to beat today, technology-wise. They're perfect watches. So I would not put these watches in the category of homage or re-edition. These are just classics. They continue producing, and they do them better today than they did in the past. So, I mean, you have no reasons. I mean, I own quite a few vintage Speedmasters, but if I'm honest to myself, there's not much reason of owning them when you have perfectly modern ones on the same size with perfect specs. But again, so the idea is not to make any reproduction of any classical stuff, but to take something I like or something I realized missing in the history and just having some fun and making them. So that's the point of Albishorn, yeah.
I was looking at going through your collections over the last few days, getting this set up and prepped. And I tell you what struck me is the whole narrative behind Albishorn is this fantasy, what might have been approach to watchmaking.
Exactly, yeah.
If Sébastien Chaulmontet was working in the 1930s, in the 1940s.
There you go.
Yeah.
And because they are completely conceived out of not trying to be the latest new thing, but creating a kind of I thought to myself, a comic strip type of narrative to these pieces. And I loved the fact that the Thundergraph that we're looking at now came from the idea of the first expedition to do Everest in 1952?
The Swiss, exactly. The Swiss failed, but they had a good watch.
They got to within 250 meters of the summit.
They literally paved the way for the Brits 1 year later. Absolutely, yeah.
Them Brits, they're never not at it, as we say, But
so every watch has a bit of a different kind of connection. I mean, sometimes there will also be a watch presented at some point for someone who lived, which I would have loved to create the fitting watch. So I did it after. So, I mean, every watch has a bit of a different starting point, but at the end of the day, they still are all Albishorn, and they fit in the same overall story. And the rationale behind it is quite simple. It is, the question was, how could you design something vintage without stealing or reproducing one-to-one something someone else did before you? So obviously you have clue. Obviously I'm taking elements and design codes which I haven't created myself. I haven't created the Flieger chronograph, right? For sure not. But I still try to put a lot of new stuff, new details, function, layouts, to make it my own, but without reproducing the past. And my vision of that is that when I look at my own watch collection, it is, I think, if you do something original, even if it's in the style from the past, it has more chances to age gracefully because it's an original. And for me, like I'm a big Longines fan, the vintage one. Even if the nowadays, I mean, they presented a very nice monopusher yesterday, but I'm collecting the old ones, and I would not really buy any re-editions because the old ones were so good. And I would buy new stuff if it looks different, but buying something which I already own from the right period. So I saw with Arbison, the good thing is you cannot buy the original. It has the piece from the past. It has not been made. So I kind of like that
Never
idea.
existed. And I love that. But this is the Thundergraph was it was created with the explorers, the expeditions that were going up Everest at the time. With so you have the Himalaya version, which I think is the blue dial, the petroleum.
Yeah, exactly. And the Kumbu is a base camp version. Yeah, I mean, this one has many origins. The first of were reading the error-proof dial patent from from Rolex, explaining how they structure a dial to make it more readable. When I read it several times because there are some very interesting thoughts going into this patent, and you don't have that many patents on dial designs anymore. Because they are more technical nowadays. And the idea of clean structuring, and they had some first studies how the brain reads something. And I thought to myself, wow, it was never applied to a chronograph. And if you follow the logic, you need the two counters very low to be in half of the dial. They cannot interfere with the upper half.
Yes.
And then obviously you say, okay, you have to get rid of the Arabic numerals. And then you try to structure with the triangles, which I didn't use they didn't use triangles at Rolex. They did like square markers, and from that you evolve. And then you think, okay, and the zero graph had a very strange crown within the lugs. So it's how I first actually designed that watch, and from that one, I somehow said, okay, what else can I do? Because what you have to know is when I launched the brand 2 years ago, every design, not every, but I mean, for the couple of years to come, I've already been designed, and most of them exist as prototypes. So it's not like we started with Fabian having one watch ready. We had the full vision and the full collection existing. Because when you have a concept like uchrony or imaginary vintage, you still have to say, but how long can I play the game and it stays funny? And I think we can play it for many, many years to come. Obviously not only chronographs, because people would get bored at some point, but you also have to start. And I mean, chronographs are what I prefer in watchmaking, so I will always do many chronos, but there are a lot of other things to do, as you have seen with the time pyramid or the U10 from Angelus. So
Wow.
so we will attack these as well. But as I had never did a sport chrono before, nor a watch with a turning bezel, and I've never been attracted before to turning bezels. It was also I love turning bezels, but I also wanted to do something where I didn't reproduce something I did either at Arnold and Son or at Angelus. So that's what also a bit the intellectual play was, to say I have a given setup of being vintage. I refuse to making re-edition of designs I love, and there are so many designs which I'm so tempted to just making one-to-one. So I don't. I really refrain from copying something I love, and I prefer having all that influences coming and then making my own out of it, my best of, so to speak. And so it was for me very cool to not reproduce something I did at another brand before.
Wow.
There's a very distinctive thread that runs through all of the Albishorn collection so far. As you say, they've all been chronographs so far, but these are not just novelty pieces. That's another thing. The assumption that people may have, that because it's this imaginary vintage, these are very sophisticated creations.
Yeah. I mean, I use in most of them patented little complication, which I patented myself, like in the Marina graph or the Type 10. It's a patent of mine. They're all COSC certified. So they are. I mean, I also, one of the biggest issue when you design chronographs, to be true to the vintage one, you need to be thin, and I had no thin movement available. So I had to develop on the valve architecture a very thin movement. I'm 5.7, which allows me to having a 12 millimeter high chronograph. So it's even thinner than any Speedmaster hand wound or any vintage Rolex chronograph, because I'm thinner than a Valjo 23, which is 6 millimeter, and I'm 5'7". So I have 100-meter waterproof, and I'm of course measuring on the top crystal and not like trying to cheat. So even if the bezel makes them all look thicker than they are, the automatic version is 13 and the hand wound is 12. So
crazy.
I'm 1 millimeter more than 1 millimeter thinner than a Speedmaster hand wound. This is something you only realize once you have it on the wrist, but that was my main concern. I knew if I wanted to be faithful, and when I think of what is the biggest joy I have wearing all my old chronographs, is that they're not thick like a brick. That changes everything when you have a nice profile, you know. And so I had to go back and to remove all I had to on these movements, to go down as much as possible. And then you have a lot of little details like the distance between the hands. Nowadays, we let a lot of distance because it's way easier to assemble industrially with machines. And I get rid of all that stuff. My hands literally touch the die. When you look at the picture of the sonograph you have just right here, you see the hands on the counters. They're really, really, really close to the. And then you have obviously a distance because you have to go with a minute over the index. But when you look between hour and minute, I have half of what an industrial standard would be. So these are really, so I want to make watches I want to wear myself. So it's also why I cost certify the things and I do add mechanical complexity when needed. But again, that's something which not that easy to explain, because if I show you a picture just from the dial side, you don't see if it's 14.5 or 15 millimeter or 12. But once you have it on the wrist, the 3 millimeter difference is huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. So
you have a very good point. It's not like it's just a fantasy where I get some quartz movement. I mean, I still have my mechanical background, and I'm very movement focused. And of course, some watches will come out in the next couple of years where people will obviously understand that the movement, like when you look at the U10, I don't have to explain that it's not a stock movement, right? It's self-explanatory. But yeah, on chronograph, for me, the thinness was everything. And I think we have a trend also of people at least trying to go thinner again. And especially when you have a small wrist like mine with 16, if you have something which it sticks, it doesn't wear well. I mean, if you have a big wrist, it makes not a difference, but for me it really does.
Yeah.
But I also
I just want to go and hold it in my hand that very. This is what I want to do, because the first time I saw the Zerograph was with Phil Toledano had one of those. And
the original.
I was like, what the fuck is this? And it's like, listen, don't ask.
He has a white dial. He has a white radium dial.
Absolutely. Yeah. So he had come to my restaurant to eat, and there were four of them. Menta was there, Rob Cooper, Phil, and Mike Nuvo, and they were all sitting down there. I'm looking at Phil's watch. I was like, what the fuck is this? And he's like, you're the first one to notice it.
And it's tiny,
it's very small. It's like
very,
that.
very small.
Yes.
It's small. Like, wow. It's small and very radioactive.
Yes. Oh yeah, that I'm 100% sure that is very
It's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they had like a special mixture when they started with the thing.
Yeah.
I think they were not knowing what they were doing, but I have all the equipment to measure the thing. Oh my goodness.
That was also 1941, 1942, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very early.
Very, very early, and that's the reason why it was so small. But it looked crazy, and I didn't even know it was a Rolex at that time, because I've never seen a watch like that.
No, and it's actually very, very important in the Rolex history, but because it was, so to speak, the first manufactured chrono from them, even if it's not a chronograph, technically speaking, and it had the first turning bezel. So it put, and they had this California dial, certain execution, not all had them. So it has a lot of very Rolex-ish stuff in it, but it had some. The Italian in the 90s, they were collecting these, but then they somehow disappeared, and I would say they're more affordable now than they used to be in the 90s.
I can imagine. I mean,
And
those,
XJX told me it's because you're an old man, Sebastian, that you remember and do one.
yeah, we were talking about old men right before this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, to tell you the fact is, like, when I look at that, and I'm like, this has got so much of the original, but it's totally different in a way, and
Yeah.
it's so functional, and it's got all the things what you explained, and I'm like, this is crazy to get something out there and and put it out there and say, listen, this is crazy and this is how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
technically you know how it is and what you're doing. For me, it's like I'm looking at a watch which makes sense. You know what I mean? And that is what it is. And to
Mm.
look at I look at my community of watch collectors who don't think of buying a $100,000 watch or a $10,000 watch. They think of buying a watch which makes sense to them.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that is crazy. That would have so many. I mean, I'm just looking at the way when I wear this watch and take some pictures and send it out there. How many of these guys from my community is going to tell me, "What the fuck is this now? Where can
Yeah.
I get this one?" You know what I mean? That is what it is.
Yeah.
That is the main focus on how these things work. Nothing else.
And to be honest, I was very surprised in the sense of, I mean, the reaction on the Thundergraph have been very, very good. I thought it was a bit weird, and the very interesting thing is, I would say many of the buyers, because of course I never use Rolex anywhere. I don't want to go
Yes.
to jail, so I'm never mentioning it and everything. So I have deeply respect for Rolex and everything. As you can see, I don't have Rolex hands, or I
Of course.
changed like. Also, the case is not at all a Rolex case with
course.
the lugs, as a shaped lugs and everything. I'm not trying to, really not.
And there's no need. There's no need
No,
for it.
and for sure not.
Yeah.
But my point is, many people bought that watch without
Yeah.
knowing where it came from, and I
Oh.
love that because it made sense to them
Yes.
as an overall design.
Yes.
So
That's exactly what
yeah,
it is.
so this one really means a lot because I would say in the landscape today of chronographs, it's very unique. While when you take the Type 10, which is my best seller, is the Type 10. The second one is a Thundergraph. The Type 10 really, you have a lot of aviation chronographs. I mean, you have more than enough actually. Yeah. So
Let's
thought
talk
this.
about, the Type 10, because the Type 10 is the imaginary predecessor to the famous Type 20.
Absolutely, yeah. Which has
In-
no official ancestor. At
Precisely.
least not within the army. So you have a Type 10, but it's a dashboard, or now it's a Type 11 to be precise. No
Oh.
Type 10. So they use Type 11 and Type 12 as dashboard, but not Type 10. So we went quite far. If you buy the watch, you get even, because of when the army, when they were ordering the watch, they always made technical specs. And so I got my hands on the original Type 20 specs. I scanned them, I redesigned them, and I made these specs fitting my watch with my design as a blueprint. And so when you buy it, you get the fake French army document with the watch. Yeah, it had a lot of stuff which I like. From the dashboard, I took the dot at 12, which is a thrust indicator. To show that, because as you know, chronographs can misfunction and you don't know if it starts by itself or if it should have stopped and it didn't. So in the air, in clocks, in aircraft, especially the Jaeger ones they built for the army, they always integrated a color dot which gives you a feedback on what you are doing with your chronograph, if it's running or not. So I integrated one in a new way. It's why I could patent it, and I also wanted to create something moving around at 12 o'clock. Then I wanted a mono pusher, because as you know, the two pusher chronograph was introduced something around 1934, 35. So the very first military were still using, even 10 years later, mono pushers. And also I'm actually left-handed, even if I write I wear my watches like a handed person, but I kind of like starting with the thumb. I always find it more logical. And I also like crowns which are not digging in my wrist. So also here I'm winding my watch on the wrist. It's super nice to wind. I can really just scroll with my finger. So, and again, you need some identity. You need some stuff which is a bit different. And I do only 150 watches a year, so I don't need to be mainstream by any means, right? So that is really a project out of passion. I'm not will not make my living out of that. Here you can see that the thing is quite thin, because if you just mentally remove the bezel and you you really have 12 millimeters on the top of the sapphire, and you have 10 millimeter less, a little bit on the 10 for the steel bud. And as you can see on the case band, I cannot reduce any more because I've barely space to put my crown and my pusher.
Wow. It's purred right back. It's listening to you, the thought and the detail that has gone into every single element of these watches is just. It doesn't surprise me, knowing you and following your career for the years that I have done, but just reading about them and. Like, you know, I met you in Geneva a few times when we were walking around the Palais Expo, and you had something in your satchel that you would want to show us, and I was intrigued, and I wasn't quite sure I understood what was going on. But reading over it over the last few days, it's been absolutely fascinating, and I love what you're doing. It's
thanks a lot. Yeah.
It's
but
right
it's obviously it's quite nerdy. I have to agree on. You know, probably there are details nobody cares except me. But I think if you do out of passion,
the details are the ones which makes you the person who you are. You know. Tell me, like, you're making 150 watches a year, and you just want to. It won't feed you, but it's not about that. It's about those people who buy it. Who are buying it and who are happy about something what they have, which is very special, and that is the key to everything, right?
Absolutely. And I have also very close relation to many of the customers, and obviously you don't buy an Albishorn as a first watch, and the journey which brings you to the brand is so often a long one, and it's very interesting to see my baby, so to speak, travel the world.
Absolutely.
And again, I mean, a lot of people ask, why do you don't do next to that like a classical bi-compacts? And I don't feel the need of doing it. And I have my niche, and I'm quite happy in that. And it was built from the very beginning to be to not be like a bigger production. So I'm actually right where I thought I would be. So I'm quite happy with that. It has been quite an interesting journey so far, like 2 years. 2 years next Geneva Watch Days. So in a week, it's exactly 2 years we launched. Of course, we started 3 years before the launch. That was a long journey.
We R&D and all of those things, of course.
Yeah, and many prototypes of changing stuff, testing stuff. Yeah, it took us very, very long, unfortunately.
But it was it's what can I say? Incredible pieces.
Very, very cool. Very
cool. You worked up, and I did come away with that feeling of this is like comic strip horology, and that is not to demean it, because it's so sophisticated. It's like what your secret agent would have worn in.
It's a comic strip in some way, so I kind of like it. And but there is one aspect where I still try, and that's because of my background in haute horlogerie, I would say. I still try to do rock solid tested watches, and that's and which are not gimmicky by this, because I do vintage size, like 39 at exact size diameter of Type 20 from the French Army. So I start, to not go into Invicta might be a bit harsh, but not go into something overly. Yeah, because Invicta, that's really that's really the worst comparison probably I could think of.
Right.
But, no, but the idea is not to go. I mean, they are still small and thin, and I would say I'm not trying to be loud in the sense of not trying to make a caricature of something which used to be refined. I have the chance of a good friend of mine working at the Breguet boutique, and we put mine next to the re-edition they just launched, and mine is so much smaller, thinner, I would more discreet than the re-edition Breguet brings nowadays, which are not that bad actually, but they're large and they are thick. And I think when I think of comic, I think of an exaggeration, making things even more
Yeah.
colorful, more. And I would say I don't, especially when you look at the Type 10, I'm more subdued than also an Air Command from Blancpain. I love the Air Command. It's probably historically one of the greatest chronographs ever made. I'm very lucky owner of an original one from the time.
Oh wow.
But the re-editions are quite perfect. But when you put mine next to it, I would say the Air Command is louder, but not in a bad way, but it's bolder.
Yeah.
So I don't try to be bolder than the vintage one, because most of the time when people do vintage nowadays inspired, they try to add some spiciness, some salt, and then try to make it more Instagram-like.
Yeah.
And I try to somehow avoid that, but still I am in your idea of the imaginary, somehow rewritten history.
Yeah.
But still trying to be serious watchmaking with COSC certification. I had not one single client telling me that it matters to him, but I still do it.
It matters to you. And
yeah, it does.
I just need to clear up something. When I say a common strip, I'm thinking of people like Hergé, who was so detail obsessed. Everything, every line, if you look at
absolutely,
that's what I mean. That's where I'm coming from.
No, and I don't take it. I like your comparison. I just wanted to explain a bit how I see it.
Sure. Listen, I wanted quickly to move on because we haven't really talked about the marinograph at all yet. And tell me about the bezel. Tell me about the bezel of marinograph.
So the bezel is a long and a complex story. First of all, I love the very first 807 Super Ocean from Breitling, which had a conical aluminium bezel. And I didn't want to reproduce that one-to-one, by far not, but I love this vintage chronograph. And I wanted something which has not been done, and you have to have it on the wrist to see the difference, is to combine that with some kind of 50 fathom bezel if you want to, but not rounded like that, but rounded into something conical. So it's very interesting because you have the sapphire like melting down, the sapphire bezel melting down to the curved box crystal. So you have a very, very, when I compare it to my Blancpain, a very different depths, because the sapphire, what you have to see, it's both curved, but it's also going down the hill. So it's like when you look in the black hole, where you somehow, it disappeared within the crystal. And it's very, very complex to make. All suppliers wanted to make it flat underneath, because you have to see that my sapphire, the part you don't see, which is actually attached to the steel part, is also conical underneath. And that means when you have to cut out the thing, polish it, you have never a flat, clear surface to hold it. So everybody said you can have it like that, but we make it flat underneath. But if you make it flat underneath, all the SLN printing has not the same distance to the top, meaning the higher you go, the more it looks like on the bottom of the sea. And that is something you don't want to. So I did it in plexiglass, because then you can mold whatever you want.
Wow.
But it wasn't that great, and it was really not scratch resistant. So I really tried it. And so I went back to sapphire, and the people told me again, you have to change your entire bezel because the underneath need to be flat. And so this one, though, is not flat underneath. Is why when you have it and you see the triangles and the baton, they really follow the shape of the bezel. So you don't have the impression that you are looking and that the index is like droning. Yes. So, but it is something very hard to photograph. I have it on the wrist right now, but it's a pleasure to wear. So as I was not ready last year, we had the racing bezel, which was supposed to be the capsule collection, which is still one of my favorite because it's the most extreme one with green and you have the tide indication, something also never existed. So we recreate our own way of showing the tide. So the Paraiba is still somehow my darling, but the sapphire bezel really made me suffer. Honestly, it's.
I can imagine.
You don't.
But again, I wouldn't say it's fully original, but it still has never existed in that way.
Yeah.
So it's not a Blancpain bezel and it's not a Breitling bezel.
Yeah. No. I looked at it the first time last time, and we talked on the In the Metal last week, and I said, wow, that has got some Blancpain 50 fathoms, but it's still not the same. It's so crazy. And and Johnny's like, yeah, you got a point there.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about it. You can see that definitely that same kind of DNA is there. Like, you know, it's I love it, and I was delighted to be able to. Yeah, I was delighted to be able to get you, Sébastien, to join us.
If people want to buy it, where they're going to buy it?
Well, there's only one place. It's on my website.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have so far, except the Masséna collaboration, I've sold exclusively all my watches directly.
Oh, wow.
Which was sometimes painful with changing tariffs on the daily basis.
Yeah.
As the US is one of my biggest market is Switzerland.
Yeah.
And then is the US, and then the rest of the world. So I've shipped to so many countries. It's plain crazy. But yeah, only on my website, which is sometimes a bit, I think people want to see them and to touch them, and it's with me, unfortunately, not really possible. And in the addition to that, to add some pain to it, I am not exhibiting and not doing any shows. So I am in Geneva, but like on just running around, as I said before, not exhibiting.
We will connect with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will show you, so you will see them in the metal, because I will certainly have a few with me. But yeah, for the time being, it's really meant to be a side project of mine, meaning I have not that unlimited time to put into the project. And so I'm not able to travel, unfortunately, because I loved traveling, especially for Arnold. It was a pure pleasure also going to New York every year. And I think probably the best days I had was traveling to New York in September, October.
Yeah,
but but no, it's not the way the brand is built. And so yeah, only sold. And I was very surprised that it worked out from the day one, that people trusted me. And so I'm very grateful for all the people, all the support, especially as I have a lot of recurring clients, which have basically everything I did. So it's a great support. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, if ever you do come to New York, we would be very happy to host you. We'd be very happy to get you there and get you all of our community, to see.
Yeah, no. At some point, I need to come back.
Yeah, because sure. If you said that you have one of your largest, buyers here, you should also, maybe come and say hello.
Yeah. Well, that for sure. If there's one market I need to visit and to say thank you, especially, is the US. Yes. Because probably they are among the collectors who are the more daring, I would say, and the most also entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
People who really want to support smaller brands. Yes. In a mix of know-how but also helping somehow a new project. And this is very American to me in a very good way, I would say. And so the US is always quite open to novelty and trying things. 100%. And I am very glad to have Switzerland as well as a market, because obviously it makes things so way easier. Also shipping, and you have no tariffs, no stuff. Yeah. And there are people are next by, so it's also quite nice because most of them come and have a coffee. And so I met a lot of very interesting people through Albishorn, actually. Very, 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 crazy people.
I am sure.
I know my neighborhood because of Albishorn. No, it's not kidding. I mean,
it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
That's super cool, and you meet people which have very interesting life stories, which are from all kind of and they realize that you're somehow local. But even if they learn about you on the internet or on Hodinkee or whatsoever, they realize that you're living 30 kilometers away, so they're calling you, which I mean, I can imagine if I would be in New York City, I think I could sell my entire production within the city.
Oh, yeah, I think
I would be drinking coffee all day.
Yeah, one evening where you go to one of these, shows, it's all gone and gone, and it's.
We will organize that. We will do in the metal and Albishorn get together. Or in Brooklyn some of these days.
Brooklyn.
Sure. Yeah. But, listen, we're approaching. We've gone over the hour mark, which is So, which the
Very
time just
good.
flies. So
Yeah, I know.
what we're
I
gonna
talk
do,
too much.
Sebastian, whenever we end this thing now, please don't go for a minute or two. We'd love to catch up with you afterwards. And to everybody who has watched and followed this episode today, I hope that you have enjoyed it half as much
This
as
is amazing.
I have. It has been another journey, a voyage of discovery into imaginary watchmaking of Albishorn and Dr. Sébastien Chaulmontet, who has been an absolutely engaging guest to have on. And I hope, Sébastien, that this is only the first time you'll be on, because you have an encyclopedic knowledge of the whole watchmaking landscape, both historically and what's happening today, and it's amazing. Jay, it's been a great conversation.
It's been amazing. I mean, I am still trying to get to that point where I should be, which I am not. I'm very thankful for this insights of what you've given me, and hopefully also people who've been watching us. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Geneva.
I'm looking forward as well, and thanks to both of you to giving me the opportunity. As you know, as a small brand, you don't have that often, so it's always great to be able to explain why we do stuff. And so thanks so much both for having me.
A pleasure. And to everybody who's watched us, thank you for your comments, thank you for your eyeballs, and always remember to like and subscribe if you haven't on our YouTube channel, which is just YouTube/In the Metal. And we will see you next time. Next time we will be coming from Geneva, I would imagine.
Yes.
So who knows? We have nothing planned, so let's see how that all transpires. So, folks, for the meantime, thank you so much indeed for watching. Jay, Sebastian, we'll see you in a moment.
Great.